In this lesson, we're going to look at a different way of calculating the mean, and this is called the weighted mean. So we're going to determine weighted means. And the outcomes we're going to cover today include explain using examples such as course marks, which is a very common example, why some data in a set would be given a greater weighting in determining the mean. And then calculate the mean of a set of numbers after allowing the data to have different weightings, or in other words, calculating the weighted mean. So what is the weighted mean? It's the average or mean of a data set in which each data point does not contribute an equal amount to the final average. And again, you'll see this an awful lot when it comes to, say, term marks. So this is a continuation of the example we looked at in the last lesson. But now we're going to look at calculating the weighted mean for Tristan's physics marks. Once again, the table shows Tristan's physics marks, homework, quizzes, projects, exams, and oral presentations. You may be aware that in a lot of cases, exams will have the most importance when it comes to your final mark. So, and homework, for instance, has very little in a lot of cases. It's a small contributor to a mark. We calculated in the last lesson that his mean mark, if we treated everything equally, was 76%. We're going to look at weighted mean this time, though. So Tristan's teacher decides how to use a weighted mean to determine Tristan's final mark. Homework only counts for 10% of the mark. Quizzes are 20%. Projects count for 15% of the mark. Exams count for a whopping 50%, or half of the entire mark is based on exams, and oral presentations only count for 5%. So what is Tristan's final mark based on the weighted mean? So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the weightings add up to 100%. 10% for homework, 20% for quizzes, 15% for projects. There we go. 50% for exams, and 5% for oral presentations. If we add all those numbers together, we do get 100. So they do add up to 100%. Now this isn't always necessary, but it certainly makes your calculation of a weighted mean much easier to deal with if things do add up to 100%. Next, we're going to multiply the marks by their weightings. So I have a nice handy table here. Homework had a weighting of 10%, and Tristan's mark was 90%. So we multiply his mark by the weighting. It'd be 0.1 times 90%. So 9 of his marks in his final average come from the homework. He has a 20% weighting on quizzes, and he has an average or mark of 62%. So that contributes 12.4 marks towards his final average. Projects are worth 15%, and he has a 68 average, or 68% mark. So that contributes 10.2 marks to his final average. Exams are worth 50% of his final mark, and he has a mark of 75% on his exams, so that contributes 37.5 marks to his final average. Oral presentations are only worth 5%, but he has an 85% average on his oral presentations, so that contributes 4.25% of his final mark. So once we have the weighted scores, which are the last column in that table, we add them together. 9 plus 12.4 plus 10.2 plus 37.5 plus 4.25, and that'll give us a mark of 73.35, which rounds to about 73. So his weighted average is actually 73. So which gives Tristan a higher mark? Is it the mean that we calculated in the last lesson, or the weighted mean, which we just calculated? Explain. Well, the mean mark we said was 76%. The weighted mean was 73%. This is because all of the marks are valued the same in the mean. Some of the things that aren't given much value in the weighted mean are higher marks. And for example, his homework and his oral presentations. They don't contribute a whole lot to his weighted mean, but when they're treated equally to everything else, they would tend to boost his mark. So this is why his average, his mean mark that we calculated in the last lesson is a little bit higher than his weighted mean. Why do you think the teacher used a weighted mean? Well, this is because some of the components of the marking scheme are given more importance. Exams are often a major contributor to your final mark. They tend to incorporate a lot more of the outcomes that are required in any course than a quiz or individual homework assignments. So to summarize, the weighted mean is the average of a data set when the terms of the set are not given equal value. So some things are given more value than others, and we calculate our average based on these new weightings, as we call them. And again, the most common example you'll see of this is often your term average in any course you take.